Welcome back. So, today we're going to be talking about the judiciary. But before we get into just how broken our judiciary is and just how screwed we are, let's get into the basics. So, there are basically three types of courts in India, right? The Supreme Court, the High Court, and the District Courts. Apart from this, we also have tribunals and commissions that look into specific statutes. Understood?
Wait, hang on. I think
Great, moving on. Over years, several reforms have been suggested to the judiciary by the Law Commission of India and various justices, yet none of them have been implemented. Rampant corruption and under trials just really scratch the surface when the real issues with our judiciary are in its inherent structure. So let's look at some of those today. We're going to be discussing three issues that bog down our judiciary: pending cases, post retirement appointment, and the collegium system. Let's talk about the first: pending cases. As of 2017, India had 26 million pending cases in our district courts. To give you a context of that number, Australia has a population of 25 million. So India has more pending cases than Australia has people. Oh, and it's not like people just like suing each other. The issue of pending cases lies within the problem of vacancies. Out of the 22,454 benches, more than 5,000 are currently empty, which means that there are 1,540 pending cases per judge. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having that many cases to go through? That many convoluted and complicated cases to have to listen to, very well knowing that at every moment there's someone else waiting for you to hear them out. Can you imagine the. Oh, what's that? Oh, you have Netflix? Right, okay, anyway, sorry, moving on. Anyway, do you remember the Bhopal gas tragedy? You know, the big gas leak in 1984, a bunch of people died, but the courts minimized the intensity of the case so that the company involved could get away with it? Yeah, that one. While it's terrible enough that the negligence that led to the disaster was completely swept under the rug, what's somehow worse is that the case for compensation was filed only in 2010 and it's still pending today. 36 years. 36 years and justice is yet to be delivered. The only thing that should be taking that long is the next Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film, because let's be real, that shit can take its sweet time and we will wait for it, regardless. Let's talk about the second issue: post retirement appointment. This is basically the process in which, after retirement, judges are appointed to governmental posts. Now, you might not find this problematic, but you need to realize that the different branches of the government are kept separate for a reason, so that they don't have an influence on each other. Take, for example, the case of former Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi. Gogoi was involved in some really notorious cases like the Ayodhya case and the Assam NRC case. In both of these cases, he ruled in favor of the BJP's agenda. Unsurprisingly, under 6 months after his retirement, he was appointed to the Rajya Sabha. And it's not like this practice is exclusive to the BJP. The Congress did the same thing with MC Chagle. And several reforms have been suggested to this, including the former Chief Justice of India, R.M. Lodha, suggesting a 2-year cool-off period being implemented between the retirement of a judge and their appointment to a governmental post, which makes complete sense to me. But neither the Congress nor the BJP have given any importance to such reforms because they're scared that these reforms will reduce the potential influence they can have on our judiciary. Now let's talk about the third issue: the collegium system. The collegium system is basically a system that appoints, elevates, and transfers judges and lawyers to the Supreme and High Courts. This consists of a forum that has the Chief Justice of India and the four most senior judges of the Supreme Court. Now, this has two pressing issues. First, it has no constitutional basis, and secondly, it's basically a network based on personal likes and dislikes. Oh, what's that? You like my hair and you're always complimenting it? I think you're perfect for the job. What's that? You don't care about justice. Justice. Am I saying it right? The icing on this bullshit cake is that the judiciary doesn't fall under the RTI, which means that we can't question its workings. Several reforms have been suggested and petitions have been signed against the collegium system. Even former Supreme Court Justice Justice Chelameswar, who was the second most senior justice at the point of his retirement, refused to attend these meetings of the collegium and openly, fiercely opposed this method of appointment, and yet no reform was made. Really makes you wonder where the priorities of our judiciary lie. At the bedrock of all of this, our films and our judiciary both require the same thing: representation. Out of all of the judges in India, only 10.4% of them are females. And there's only one female judge out of the Supreme Court's 34. Also, have you noticed how low the conviction rate are for crimes that are committed against scheduled tribe and scheduled caste communities? I'm guessing you haven't. And neither have the mostly upper caste judges. See, the explanation is really simple. They're blinded by their privilege. I mean, I get it, the jobs are difficult to be that just, that fair, and that understanding. You've got to have a working moral compass and, a spoonful of empathy. Honestly, I just feel like we have too many expectations from the people that are responsible for delivering justice. Listen, the logic is really simple. In an already overwhelmed judiciary, the collegium system keeps the representation at a minimum, which makes delivering any kind of justice for minority communities extremely difficult. And just when you think that an old justice is about to retire and leave, they join the legislature and then make policies that further subjugate the minorities, which leads to more cases, which leads to even less representation, and the cycle goes on. Oh, and this is before the BJP administration. And if there's one thing in common between the BJP and Jeffrey Epstein, it's that they can both fuck up the smallest of things. To look into exactly how the BJP administration has weaponized the judiciary and used it in its own favor, let's look at this one case. Can we have mood lighting? Sohrabuddin Sheikh and his wife Kausar B were traveling to Sangli when they were arrested by the Gujarat ATS forces. He was accused of possessing 60 AK-47 rifles at his home in Madhya Pradesh. The two of them were separated, and 3 days later, Sohrabuddin Sheikh was encountered. And Kausar B, she just vanished off the face of the earth, which is 100% not illegal and not shady at all. Which is probably why for almost a year, none of this information was made public. Until a couple of police officers involved boasted about this in front of a journalist. As soon as the information became public, in 2007, 3 high-ranking police officers from the Gujarat police were arrested, and Amit Shah, as usual, refused to participate in this case and eventually got out of it without facing any repercussions. Honestly, I could go on 20 minutes talking about how Amit Shah pulled all of this off, but we have to move on because there are so many more details in this story. Sheikh's family continued to try to get courts to deliver justice to them and at least try to find Kausar B. And then, this case landed in the courts of Justice Brij Gopal Loya. Loya was pressurized by the Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court to rule this case in favor of the BJP, and he was even offered 100 crore rupees. But Loya stayed true to his duty and worked really hard on this course with his associates, lawyer Shrikant Khandalkar and former Justice Prakash Thombre. And soon enough, this is really getting somewhere, right? Soon enough, 9 years later, 9 years later from 2007, that means 2014. Take a guess. What do you think happened? In December 2014, just a couple of months after BJP had its landslide victory in the central elections, Brij Gopal Loya's family received a call from a member of the RSS telling them that he had mysteriously died of cardiac arrest in Nagpur, the headquarters of the RSS. In November, the next year, 2015, Khandalkar was thrown off the roof of his house. In May 2016, Prakash Thomre, died in mysterious circumstances when he was traveling from Nagpur to Bangalore. You think all of these are coincidences? I'll give you more. When his family went to visit his body, Brij Gopal Loya had blood on his back, shoulder, and his neck, even though the report had no documentation of any injuries. After the family repeatedly asked for his belongings, they finally received them, and when they did, his phone was wiped. It was left with only one chilling SMS: Sir, stay safe from these people. And dude, what's worse is that the phone was handed over to them not by a police officer but by a member of the RSS. Let's talk about the post-mortem report. The post-mortem report states the time of the death as 6:19 a.m., whereas the members of Brij Gopal Loya's family stated that they had received calls from members of the RSS saying that Brij Gopal Loya had not only died but the post-mortem had also been conducted since 5 a.m. in the morning. A post-mortem cannot be conducted without the consent of the family of the deceased, and yet a mysterious man posing as a relative of Loya signed under his post-mortem. The only way one post-mortem report can have those many errors is if it was made by the fuck-all machine that they use in McDonald's drive-thrus. Loya's family petitioned to the Supreme Court for the reinvestigation of his death, but the Supreme Court declared that it was due to natural causes. By December 2014, Amit Shah was acquitted of this case due to the lack of sufficient evidence, and by 2017, all of the other officers involved were also acquitted. Honestly, I don't even know what to say about this. Just that a judiciary that manipulates, pressurizes, and kills its own judges can do nothing to save its own citizens. Okay, so now that we have the normal lights again, let's talk about normal judicial misconduct in India. The Ayodhya situation. The Babri Masjid was a mosque present in Ayodhya. However, Hindu nationalists thought that it was present at the birthplace of Lord Ram, an ancient fictional character from ancient fan fiction who's given godlike status. So in the 1980s, the VHP, RSS, and their political wing, the BJP, came together and started pushing for the construction of the Ram Mandir at the location of the Babri Masjid. And sure enough, in 1992, the Babri Masjid was demolished by hundreds of Kar Sevaks who climbed the mosque and razed it to the ground one day after the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee gave a provocative speech in Lucknow. Over 150,000 Kar Sevaks were present at the disputed site on the 6th of December 1992. This also included several BJP senior leaders. FIRs were also filed against some of these leaders like L.K. Advani and even others like Balasaheb Thackeray. Okay, so now that we know what exactly happened, let's talk about how the judiciary dealt with it. So after the demolition of the mosque, the Supreme Court had two cases to handle in relation to the Ayodhya situation. The first being Babri Masjid versus Ram Mandir, and the second one being about the accused in the demolition of the mosque and inciting violence. In 2014, when the BJP came to power, they laid a lot of emphasis on the Ram Janmabhoomi movement. And in 2019, when they started their second term, the last hearing of the case of the Ayodhya dispute also began. In November of 2019, the Supreme Court finally declared and concluded the case by giving the disputed site to the trust for the construction of the Ram Mandir and allotting a land of 5 acres to the Sunni Waqf group for the construction of a mosque elsewhere. Now, I know a lot of Hindus think that this was their sacred land and hence their sentiments trump any kind of mosque. But we need to realize that a lot of Muslims in our country felt dejected by this because this was yet another blow to their minority rights in our nation. And this was right after the abrogation of Article 370 and the CAA. Also, now that we're talking about Article 370, fun fact, the groundbreaking ceremony in Ayodhya was held on the 5th of August 2020, which is the anniversary of the day the special status of Kashmir was revoked. Coincidence? I think not. Now, as if the court hadn't been biased in its decision making up till now, the final blow was made the most shamelessly. In a special court of the CBI, they concluded their hearing of the Babri Masjid case by finding no sufficient evidence against the 32 members of the BJP accused for inciting violence on the 6th of December 1992. And they also concluded the horrifying acts of that day as spontaneous and unplanned activities. I have so many questions for this court. Oh my god. Would you have called for the demolition of the mosque if the BJP hadn't played Minecraft there in 1992? And is spontaneous criminal activities not classify as criminal activities? And if that's true, then that means that technically India can have the purge. Okay, never mind. We already do have the purge. It's called the CAA. I know the situation is doomed, and I know that we could feel like there's no hope at all. But we need to find solutions to improve the situation of our judiciary. Article 84 and 102 of our constitution, when read together, clearly state that an ex-judge can become an MP or an MLA. And hence, I think we should take RM Lodha's advice and implement a 2-year cool-off period between the retirement of a judge and their appointment to a government position. Although personal opinion, I genuinely feel like judges should not be allowed to become politicians. Because you shouldn't be mixing up the two pillars of democracy at all. Plus, I don't feel like they're able to do their jobs in the first place, so we might as well not provide them with an option. About the collegium system, we can completely eradicate the collegium system and replace it with a better method of appointment, such as the one used in Canada, where a panel of MPs from both sides of the legislature nominate candidates. Perhaps we should also have reservation to our judiciary so that all sections of society have equal representation in it. And most importantly, so that justice is more accessible, we have to increase the number of district and high courts that we have. Now I know none of these reforms are easy, but to ensure justice for our future generations, change has to start somewhere. Because you need to realize that you have to keep listening and keep looking out. We can't trust the courts or the CBI. Everyone is working for them. No, not the lights right now. Anyway, thanks for watching our show. See you next time.